Welcome back to the deep dive. Look, I have to be honest with you. When I boot up a game called Farming Simulator 23, I usually go in with a very specific mindset.
Right, you want the big machines.
Exactly. I want to buy a massive tractor, I want to attach a plow that looks like a transformer, and I just want to turn my brain off. Just drive up and down a field for 3 hours. It's zen, it's relaxing, it's honest work.
It is honest work. But the research we have on the desk today is essentially telling us that your honest work is, well, exactly why your virtual bank account is empty.
Okay, that is a personal attack.
I mean, it's not just you. We are looking at a stack of notes regarding the economy of Farming Simulator 23, specifically focusing on the mobile and Switch versions.
Though the logic applies everywhere, right?
Yeah, the logic is universal. And the core argument here is pretty brutal. It says that if you are working hard, like if you are sweating over the controls, constantly driving trailers back and forth, constantly active, you are mathematically losing the game.
Which feels completely backwards.
Right.
In almost every other RPG or sim, the grind is the point. You grind XP, you grind gold, you put in the hours, you get the reward. But you're saying that in FS23, the grind is actually a trap.
Precisely. The source material we're breaking down today, it isn't just a tips and tricks list. It's more of an economic intervention.
An intervention, I like that.
Yeah, it argues that most players, especially beginners, treat the game like a job simulator when they really should be treating it like an asset allocation simulator. And because they get that wrong, they end up completely stuck.
Okay, set the scene for us, because the guide starts with a scenario that I think a lot of our listeners will immediately recognize. It calls it the tale of two farmers.
Right, and this is the perfect control group experiment. Imagine two players. Let's call them Player 1 and Player 2. They both buy Farming Simulator 23 on the exact same day.
Okay.
They load up the exact same map. Let's say they pick Amberstone. They have the same starting difficulty, same starting cash, same starting equipment. Exactly. Fast forward 10 in-game years, which is a long time. That's dozens of harvests. Player 1 has built a dynasty. They own half the map. They have the biggest Case IH or John Deere harvesters fully upgraded, and they have millions in the bank.
Wow.
They're effectively post-scarcity.
Living the dream. And Player 2?
Player 2 is still driving the starter tractor.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they're struggling to buy their third field. They have no cash liquidity. Every time they want to buy a new implement, they have to sell something else or take out a loan. They are working twice as hard as Player 1, but they have a fraction of the wealth.
I feel seen, and I really don't like it. I am definitely Player 2. I'm always asking, where did all my money go?
A lot of people do.
So what is the variable here? Is Player 1 just better at driving? Do they have better reflexes?
No. In a simulation like this, reflexes don't matter at all. This source makes it crystal clear that the difference isn't skill. It's not luck. It comes down to a single decision made in the first hour of the game. It's about understanding the specific economic engine of FS23. Player 2 failed because they fell into one of two major psychological traps.
Let's break these traps down because I want to know exactly where I went wrong. The first one is what the source calls the safety trap, and this revolves around cereal crops.
This is the default setting for the human brain. You start a new game, you're overwhelmed by the UI, you just don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah, there are so many menus.
So you open the crop menu, and what's at the top? Wheat, barley, corn maybe, but mostly wheat and barley.
They are the classics. It's what you imagine when you think of a farm. Amber waves of grain. Plus, when you start the game, you usually already have a header for grain. It feels like the game is explicitly telling you, hey, plant this. This is what you do.
Exactly. The game lowers the barrier to entry. You have the seeds, you have the harvester header. It looks safe. But the source argues that this is the first economic filter that separates the successful players from the grinders.
Okay, why?
The problem with wheat and barley isn't that they don't grow. It's that they are high volume, low value.
Break that down. High volume, low value. Why is that bad? Doesn't high volume mean I have a lot of stuff to sell?
It means you have a lot of physical stuff to move.
Yeah.
Let's look at the math. Let's say the price of wheat is roughly $300 or $400 per 1,000 liters in the game economy.
That's pretty low.
But the yield is huge. You harvest a field, and your combined harvester's grain tank fills up in literally 2 minutes.
Oh, I know this pain. You can't even finish a row.
Yeah.
The grain tank, full notification pops up, the harvester just stops dead, and you have to stop what you're doing.
You have to drive the tractor over, offload, and then drive the tractor to the silo.
And that is the trap.
Think about the logistics. If you are Player 2, you are spending 80% of your playtime driving a trailer back and forth between the field and the silo. or the silo and the sell point.
You're busy.
You're constantly steering, braking, reversing. It feels like gameplay.
It feels like work.
But look at the revenue per minute. You just spent 20 minutes engaging in heavy logistics to sell a trailer full of wheat for, what, $4,000? $5,000.
Which in this game buys you absolutely nothing. A good tractor is like $150,000.
Exactly. You're essentially working for minimum wage. The safety trap is the illusion that because the silo is full, you are doing well. But the source calls this the frustration cycle. You harvest massive amounts of grain, but your bank balance barely ticks up. You feel like you're running on a hamster wheel.
And that's usually when I quit the session, I look at the clock, I realize I've been playing for 2 hours and I've made $12,000. I can't upgrade anything, I'm just bored.
And that boredom is the trigger for the second trap.
Okay.
This is where player 2 gets desperate. They realize the wheat isn't working, so they go to the internet, they pause the game, pull out their phone, and Google most profitable crop FS23.
I have literally done this search, and the internet usually yells one word at you. Potatoes. Or maybe sugar beets.
Right. Or sugarcane, cotton. The internet loves these crops because the gross revenue per acre is technically the highest. If you look at a spreadsheet, a field of potatoes sells for a massive amount of money compared to wheat.
So player 2 thinks, aha, I've been growing the wrong thing. I need to pivot to potatoes. That sounds smart. Why is that a trap?
It's the capital trap. The source warns that these search results completely ignore the two things that actually matter for a beginner.
Which are?
Barrier to entry and time cost. Let's get specific with the machinery. You cannot harvest potatoes with your starter combine.
No, you need a specialized potato harvester.
And have you looked at the price of those in the shop?
They're ridiculously expensive.
For a self-propelled harvester, you're looking at close to $500,000. Player 2 doesn't have that, so they look at the cheap option, the towed harvester. Let's say the Grimm SE260. Still nearly $200,000.
So player 2 sells their old tractor, maybe takes out the max loan from the bank and goes all in on this potato equipment. They are now cash poor, but they have the machine.
And now they hit the reality of the harvest. Do you know the working width of a standard grain header?
It's maybe 6 meters, 9 meters, sometimes 12. You cover a lot of ground quickly.
Do you know the working width of that entry-level potato harvester?
It's tiny. It's like 2 meters.
It's basically a straw. And the working speed, you were crawling at maybe 6 miles per hour.
Oh my God.
So player 2 starts harvesting their high-profit field. They do one row, it takes 5 minutes, they turn around, they do another row. The hopper fills up instantly because the volume of potatoes is insane way higher than wheat.
Yeah.
So now they are stopping every 100 meters to unload.
So they traded the low price problem of wheat for a massive time management nightmare with potatoes.
Exactly. The source calculates that harvesting a large field of root crops with entry-level equipment can take hours of real-time play. If you are a mobile player trying to squeeze in a session on the bus or on your lunch break, this is impossible. You will never finish.
And since you spent all your money on the machine, you can't pivot back. You're completely stuck.
You are insolvent. You have an asset that takes way too much time to monetize. This is usually where player 2 just deletes the save file.
Yeah.
They tried the safe way and it was too slow. They tried the high profit way and it was too hard. They just assume the game is a grind fest.
But player 1, our tycoon from the beginning, they didn't do either of these things.
No. Player 1 asked a completely different question.
Yeah.
They didn't ask what is safe, and they didn't ask what has the highest gross revenue. They asked the question the source wants us to focus on.
Which is?
What is the most efficient path to liquidity?
Liquidity. Cash flow.
The source outlines a solution framework. A set of criteria for the perfect early game crop. If you are playing on Switch or mobile, where you don't have infinite mods to fix the economy for you, this checklist is your Bible.
Okay, lay it on me. I'm ready to restart my farm right now. What are we looking for?
There are 3 main criteria. Number 1, high value density. We need a crop that sells for a high price per liter so we aren't spending our lives driving trailers. We want quality, not quantity.
Okay, so if wheat is $300 a liter, we want something that is what? 1,000? 2,000?
Ideally, yes. We want the highest price possible for the smallest physical volume. Number 2, low barrier to entry. It must use the basic grain header and basic planter. We absolutely cannot afford specialized machines like potato harvesters or cotton pickers in year 1.
That makes sense. Keep the overhead low. Use what you already have.
And number 3, scalability. It needs to be fast to harvest so you can actually buy more land. If it takes you 4 hours to harvest, you can't expand. If it takes 20 minutes, you can't expand. If it takes 20 minutes, you can manage 3 fields comfortably.
So we need a high price, basic gear, and a fast harvest. Based on FS23 data, what crop actually fits this? Because wheat fails on price, potatoes fail on equipment cost. What is left?
If you run the math, there are really only 2 major contenders that fit this golden criteria perfectly: canola and soybeans.
Soybeans. I feel like I've heard this whispered in forums.
Let's look at the numbers for soybeans. In FS23, the yield, the physical amount you get from the ground is low, very low.
Wait, low yield sounds bad.
No, low yield is the secret weapon because the price is astronomical. Soybeans can trade for $2,000, sometimes $3,000 per 1,000 liters, depending on difficulty and market fluctuations. Compare that to wheat at $300. Soybeans are nearly 10 times more valuable by volume.
So a full trailer of soybeans is worth 10 full trailers of wheat.
Roughly, yes. Imagine what that does to your gameplay loop. Player 2, the wheat farmer, has to drive to the sell point 10 times to make $50,000. Player 1, the soybean farmer, makes 1 trip.
1 trip?
1 trip. Think about the time savings. You harvest the whole field, and your combine tank probably won't even fill up until the very end. You aren't stopping. You aren't running back and forth. You spend 90% of your time harvesting, which is the productive part, and only 10% of your time on logistics.
And the equipment.
It uses the exact same header as wheat.
Yeah.
You don't need to buy a single new machine. You start the game, you sell the wheat seeds in your silo, you buy soybean seeds, and you plant. That is it. That is the only change.
It seems so simple, but psychologically it's hard to accept that a smaller harvest is better. We are wired to want big piles of stuff.
That's the volume bias. We see a mountain of sugar beets and think rich. We see a small pile of soybeans and think poor. But the bank account tells the truth. The soybean farmer generates cash with almost zero friction. They have low expenses, no new machinery debt, and they have free time.
And free time means they can do contracts or manage animals or just skip time to the next harvest.
Exactly. And this is how player 1 builds the empire. Because they aren't bogged down in busy work, they can afford to buy field 2 much faster, then field 3. The compounding effect of that early efficiency is huge. By year 10, they have 10 fields of soybeans, bringing in massive checks with very little effort. Player 2 is still stuck in the potato mud.
It's amazing how much this mirrors real-world business. It's the difference between gross revenue and profit margin.
It really is. The potato farmer has high revenue but insane operational cost when you factor in time and machinery. The soybean farmer has pure margin, and in a game economy, margin is king.
So let's apply this. If you are holding your Switch right now, ready to start a new farm, what is the step-by-step?
Step 1, don't get attached to the crops already in the ground. If the map starts you with a field of wheat ready to harvest, fine, harvest it, but don't replant it.
Be ruthless.
Step 2, check the market prices. Confirm that soybeans or canola or sorghum, if the market is weird, are trending high.
Step 3, use your starting capital to buy fertilizer or better seeds, not new machines. You don't need a bigger tractor yet.
Correct. Your starter tractor can pull a seeder just fine. And step 4, plant soybeans. Then, fast forward. Don't be afraid to sleep through the winter. Your goal is to get to the harvest, make that one high-value delivery, and see that bank balance jump up by $40,000 or $50,000 in one go.
It sounds so much less stressful.
It changes the entire genre of the game. It stops being a chore simulator and starts being a management tycoon game. And that's where the fun actually is. Once you have the cash flow, then you can buy the silly massive tractors. Then you can mess around with potatoes if you really want to, because you can actually afford to fail.
You earn the right to be inefficient later.
Exactly. Efficiency first, luxury later.
You know, we joked at the beginning about stripping away the romance of farming, but I actually think this makes it more immersive. Real farmers aren't just looking at the sunset, they're looking at spreadsheets. They're constantly calculating input costs versus yield prices.
That's the irony. The gamey strategy of ignoring 90% of the crops is actually the most realistic simulation of a modern agribusiness. You find your niche, you minimize your overhead, and you scale.
It's a really powerful lesson. We have this instinct that busyness equals business. If I'm running around sweating, I must be being productive. But the source is telling us, stop running, sit down, do the math.
Activity is not achievement. In Farming Simulator, just like in real life, you could spend 10 years moving dirt from pile A to pile B and stay poor. Or you can spend 1 year moving a small bag of diamonds and get rich.
So, for everyone listening, put down the potato harvester, step away from the wheat field, go plant some soybeans, enjoy the silence of not driving a trailer every 5 minutes, and watch your empire grow.
Understanding this is genuinely worth more than 10 years of grinding.
And hey, once you have your first million, go buy that transformer plow. You've earned it.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up, let me leave you with this final thought. In a simulation about business, why do we instinctively assume that busyness is the goal? Have you ever considered that the real simulation isn't about driving tractors, but about managing human psychology? The urge to see a full silo or a massive pile of potatoes is an emotional bias, not a business strategy. Maybe the ultimate test of a farming simulator is whether you can overcome your own human nature to just chase the biggest pile of stuff. Think about that next time you load up your farm. Today, we're getting our hands dirty, well, virtually at least, because we're digging into the economy of Farming Simulator 23. And before you think this is just about, driving tractors in circles, the sources we have today suggest this game is actually it's a brutal masterclass in business strategy.
It really is. And the most interesting part of the research is that it highlights this massive disconnect. Most people play the game like a labor simulator, right? But the economy is designed to actually punish you for working hard if you aren't working smart.
Yeah. To set the stakes, let's look at the tale of two farmers. I mean, imagine you and a friend start a multiplayer game. You have the same map, same starting cash, same difficulty. You both play for 10 in-game years.
Which is just a huge time investment.
Huge. But 10 years later, your friend is running this massive agricultural empire. Upgraded harvesters, land all over the map, millions in the bank. And you're still in that starter tractor, debating if you can afford to, lease a fertilizer spreader.
It's such a common scenario. And the kicker is that the broke player usually put in more hours of actual physical inputs.
Like steering and driving.
Yeah, steering, harvesting, all of it.
Yeah.
They put in more physical work than the rich player.
So our mission today is to uncover why that happens. We need to figure out this logic of money that separates the tycoon from the grinder. And it seems to start with a mistake right out of the gate, which the notes call the safe trap.
This is the default setting for almost every beginner. You look at the crop menu and you see the classics. Wheat, barley, corn, they feel safe. They feel like actual farming.
Exactly. You think, I'll just plant massive fields of wheat, work really hard, and I'll get rich.
But that is the trap. The issue isn't that wheat doesn't make money, it's the volume to value ratio.
Yeah.
To make $1 million on barley, you are moving literal mountains of grain.
Right, which means more trips with the trailer, more fuel, and more real-time minutes spent just hauling stuff back and forth.
Precisely. You're equating busyness with business. Your return on the time invested is terrible. You are effectively working for less than minimum wage in your own virtual company.
Okay, so as a struggling player, I eventually realized this. I get frustrated with the pennies I'm making on wheat, so I swing to the complete opposite extreme. I go to Google and search for the most profitable crop, and I find things like sugarcane or cotton.
And you walk right into the high-value trap. The search results scream at you to plant potatoes or sugar beets.
And on paper, the numbers look incredible, the sell prices are huge, so why wouldn't I do that?
Because this is where the game hides the true cost. These crops are a liquidity nightmare for a beginner. You cannot harvest potatoes with your starter combine.
Oh, right.
You need specialized, heavy machinery that costs an absolute fortune.
So I end up selling my starter gear to buy a potato harvester, and suddenly I'm broke again.
It's even worse than that. Have you ever tried to harvest a large field of sugarcane with entry-level equipment?
I haven't, but I'm guessing it's not fun.
We are talking hours of real-time driving at 3 miles per hour. It is agonizing. So the player trades the low-margin grind of wheat for the high-capital, high-labor grind of root crops.
And they just burn out and quit because the rich crops are locked behind an equipment paywall.
Exactly.
So if low-value crops are a waste of time and high-value crops are a bankruptcy trap, what is the actual logic of money here? There has to be a middle ground.
There is. The strategy guides argue for a specific Goldilocks criteria for your early game. You're looking for efficiency, not just yield. The perfect crop needs to satisfy 3 conditions. First, a high price per liter, so you haul less.
Less trucking, more farming.
Right. Second, and this is the critical point, it must be harvestable with your starter combine. You want to avoid buying specialized headers or those $400,000 potato harvesters.
So use the assets you already have. And the third,
no secondary processing required. You want to harvest, sell, and reinvest immediately. When you filter the list through those lenses, you usually land on things like soybeans or canola.
Because true progress isn't about buying bigger machines. It's about stripping away overhead.
100%. The player who wins the 10-year challenge is the one who realized that one smart crop decision allows them to expand without increasing their fleet costs.
While the other player's drowning in potato debt, it really changes how you look at the map. It's not just fields, it's a spreadsheet with graphics.
That's the best way to put it. Keep your overhead flat while your revenue spikes.
We'll leave you with this thought to mull over before you load up your save file. If you are frustrated and stuck, stop looking for hard work to solve your problem. Instead, look for the single efficiency decision that removes the need for the grind entirely.
Sometimes the most profitable move is doing less, but doing it better.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for diving in with us. Well, digitally speaking, at least.
Right, digitally. We're getting our hands dirty with Farming Simulator 23.
Yeah, specifically, we're looking at the economy of the game. And I have to say, looking through these notes and the community data you pulled this one is really going to hit home for a lot of people.
Oh, it definitely hit home for me. I think anyone who has picked up FS23, especially if you're on mobile or the Switch, you know the exact pain we're about to talk about.
For sure.
You download the game, you're hyped, you have this whole vision of building an agricultural empire.
Right, the honeymoon phase. Everything is fresh, the engine sounds are satisfying, the birds are chirping.
Exactly. You buy the starter farm, you hop in that little tractor, and you just start grinding.
Then
the reality sets in.
Yeah.
You play for 5 hours, you play for 10 hours, you go through, 3 or 4 entire in-game years.
And you look at your bank balance.
And it hasn't moved. It is stuck. You're still driving the same rusty tractor. You still have the exact same tiny plot of land. And you're just sitting there thinking, wait a minute. I am working incredibly hard. Why am I still so broke?
It's the classic grind frustration. And what's fascinating about the research we're diving into today is that it suggests it's not usually a skill issue.
Right.
It's not that you're bad at driving the tractor or, missing rows in the field. It's actually a math issue.
That's the core of what we're unpacking today for you. We have a stack of guides and economic analysis here that argues most beginners in Farming Simulator 23 fall into a very specific economic trap on day one.
A trap they don't even know they're in.
Exactly. And the mission of this deep dive is to get you out of that trap. We're going to walk through a strategy supported by all the numbers here that is designed to make easy and smart money.
I like the sound of smart money.
Right. Usually when I hear easy money in a gaming context, I assume we're talking about like a glitch.
Walking into a wall backwards to duplicate items or something?
Exactly. But there are no glitches here.
No, it's pure agronomy. It's no factories, no expensive machinery, no complex supply chains, just a pivot in what you plant.
And that pivot is called the soybean strategy.
The soybean strategy.
Okay, I have to be honest, as a big reveal, that isn't exactly explosive. It's a small green bush.
It's not the flashiest crop, no.
It doesn't look very impressive in screenshots.
It doesn't. But if we look at the data, it is arguably the single best way to build a financial foundation in FS23.
Okay.
But before we can explain why it works, we have to understand why the other crops, the ones we all usually pick, are failing us.
Right. The source material refers to this as the trap of easy crops. So let's just play out the new player experience.
Sure.
You boot up the game, you're standing on your porch. What do you plant?
Well, what does the tutorial tell you to plant? What's usually preloaded right into your seeder?
Wheat. It's always wheat. Or maybe barley.
Exactly. And why do you think that is?
Well, it's iconic. Amber waves of grain. It's what's already in the silo when you start. It just looks like farming. When you close your eyes and picture a farm, you picture a combine harvesting wheat.
That is the default choice. And it is a massive psychological trap.
A trap.
Wheat, barley, canola, corn. They're the default for a reason. They are simple to understand. But the guides refer to this as the busy work illusion.
The busy work illusion. That sounds a bit like my day job, honestly.
Right. But in the context of the game, think about the physical act of harvesting wheat. You get a massive yield. Huge. We are talking thousands and thousands of liters of product coming off a single field.
Which feels great. You're in the combine, the pipe is out, you're dumping grain into the trailer fills up super fast.
Yep.
You have to drive to the silo, dump it, race back to the field because the combine is full again. You feel incredibly productive.
You feel busy. You are constantly moving. But here is where the math hurts you.
Get me.
The selling price per liter for wheat and barley in FS23 is incredibly low. We're talking pennies on the dollar compared to other products.
So you're doing a high volume of physical logistics.
Exactly. Harvesting, unloading, trucking, tipping, all for a very small profit margin per trip.
So I'm sweating over the touchscreen, managing the traffic, backing up the trailer, refueling the tractor, and at the end of the day...
At the end of the day, you've made pocket change.
Wow.
You are confusing activity with profitability. The game rewards you with visuals. The pile of grain looks huge, right?
Yeah, it fills the whole screen.
But the bank account doesn't reflect that volume at all. You are effectively running on a hamster wheel. You're sweating, the wheel is spinning fast, but you aren't actually going anywhere.
That is such a crucial distinction for listeners to grasp. I've definitely had that moment where I sell a massive trailer, a full semi-truckload of wheat, and the money pops up and I go, is that it? That barely covers the fuel and the helper pay.
And that disappointment leads directly to the second trap.
The overcorrection.
The overcorrection.
I know this one well. The player realizes, okay, wheat is for chumps. I'm done with the small change. I need the big money.
So what do?
They open the menu, they sort by highest price, and what do they see?
They see the heavy hitters. Potatoes, sugar beets, cotton.
Sugarcane. I remember seeing sugarcane prices and thinking I was going to be an absolute millionaire. The prices on those look amazing on paper. You see numbers that are 10 times higher than wheat.
They do look amazing. It looks like the golden ticket. And this is exactly where the financial trap snaps shut.
Because of the gear.
Right. Because while the crop value is high, or the potential yield is massive, the barrier to entry is astronomical.
We're talking about the equipment costs here. This is where the CapEx comes in.
Exactly. Capital expenditure. Let's just look at potatoes for a second.
Yeah.
You cannot harvest potatoes with your standard starter combine.
You can't just swap the header on the front.
No, you absolutely cannot. You need a specialized potato harvester.
And those aren't cheap.
In FS23, a decent self-propelled potato or beet harvester can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Jeez.
Even the tractor-pulled ones are expensive, and they require a really powerful tractor to pull them, a tractor you probably don't own yet.
Which, if you're a beginner, is literally more money than you have in the bank. You'd have to sell everything just to buy the ticket to the ride.
It's everything. So picture this scenario. You sell all your starter gear, or you max out your bank loan, to buy this one potato harvester.
Okay.
You are now asset-rich in terms of machinery, but you are cash poor. You have zero liquidity.
You're house poor, but with a tractor. You have this shiny new machine, but you can't even afford seeds to put in the ground.
Precisely. You have this one expensive machine, but you have no money for upgrades, no money to buy more land, and absolutely no safety net. If you make a mistake, or if the market crashes, you're done.
And there's an opportunity cost there too, right? The money is locked into a machine that only does one thing.
Right. You can't use a potato harvester to harvest corn. You are completely locked in.
And let's not forget the grind factor with root crops that the notes mention.
The grind is very real.
Potatoes and sugar beets are high maintenance.
The volume is absurd. If you thought wheat filled up your trailer fast, potatoes will fill up instantly.
Yeah.
You end up spending 90% of your time just shuttling potatoes from the field to the silo. It turns into a trucking simulator, not a farming simulator.
So on one side, you have wheat, which is low pay for a lot of work.
Yep.
And on the other side, you have potatoes, which is high pay, but it bankrupts you on equipment and takes forever to harvest.
It is a lose-lose for a new player. The high-risk scenario of root crops often leads to players just quitting because they burn out. They run out of patience before they can actually scale up their farm.
So what does this all mean for you, the player? We need a middle ground. We need something that pays well, doesn't require a second mortgage to harvest, and respects your time.
Enter the soybean.
Okay, sell me on the soybean, because visually, like we said, it's totally underwhelming. And I feel like when I harvest soybeans, the hopper in the combine barely fills up. It feels slow. It feels like nothing is happening.
That feeling is totally deceptive. The analysis in our source material makes a really great point here. Soybeans are often ignored precisely because they don't have huge yields.
Right.
If you harvest a hectare of wheat, you get a mountain of grain. If you harvest a hectare of soybeans, you get a small hill.
And in our gamer brains, less stuff equals less success. We want the loot explosion. We want the screen to just fill up with product.
But we have to flip our thinking. We need to stop looking at volume and start looking at the price per 1,000 liters. This is the metric that actually matters.
Hit me with the numbers. Why is the soybean the secret weapon?
In the Farming Simulator 23 economy, soybeans sell for an average of roughly $2,300 per 1,000 liters.
$2,300? Okay, that sounds decent.
And at peak market times, which we'll talk about later, it goes even higher. That makes it one of the highest priced crops in the base game that doesn't require specialized gear.
How does that compare to wheat? Just so listeners have a baseline.
It's incomparable. Wheat is a fraction of that price.
Yeah.
Usually hovering in the hundreds, maybe $400 or $500 depending on your difficulty and the month.
Wow.
So yes, you are harvesting fewer physical liters of soybeans, but the value density of those liters is just off the charts.
I see. It's like the difference between mining gold and mining coal. You get a lot less gold, but you'd much rather have a bucket of gold than a whole truckload of gold.
Exactly. The source brings up the critical metric here, which is profit per hectare. Because that is what really matters at the end of the day. You have a finite amount of land. How much money does this specific square of dirt generate?
Right, you can't just make more land magically appear.
Simulation economy data shows that soybeans earn over $3,000 per hectare. Even though wheat produces almost double the physical volume, the low price completely kills the profit margin. Soybeans beat wheat and barley significantly in pure earnings per field.
That is the aha moment right there. You're getting more money for moving less product. You are working smarter, not harder.
Which brings us to the next massive advantage, especially for the mobile gamer: the equipment.
We established that potatoes require a specialized fortune. What do soybeans require?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing special. You use the standard seeder you start the game with. You use the standard grain header and harvester you start with. You use the standard trailer.
So, zero new investment. You can literally start the strategy 5 minutes after installing the app.
Low barrier to entry. This is crucial for a beginner strategy. You don't have to sell your tractor. You don't have to take out a scary loan from the bank. You can keep your cash reserves for the one thing that actually grows your empire.
Which?
Land. Land is the only asset that truly appreciates or increases your production capacity without adding massive daily maintenance costs.
That makes total sense.
By sticking to soybeans, you minimize your machinery costs, which allows you to maximize your land acquisition.
That's huge. It seems like the biggest mistake new players make is buying machines instead of land. They just want the cool new tractor.
100%. Machines depreciate. Land creates wealth. By sticking to soybeans, you keep your overhead incredibly low. But there is another hidden benefit that I think is even more important for the mobile and Switch players specifically.
What's that?
Time.
Time.
We touched on this with the busy work illusion earlier. If you are farming wheat, or God forbid, sugar beets, you are filling that trailer constantly. You are driving back and forth to the silo 5, 6, 7 times for a single big field.
Yeah, it just becomes a truck driving simulator. And doing that on a touch screen or on those small Switch Joy-Cons, it can get tedious fast.
With soybeans, because the physical volume is lower, but the value is higher, you make way fewer trips. You might harvest that exact same field and only fill half a trailer.
But that half trailer is worth more than the 3 trailers of wheat.
Exactly. So think about what that actually means for your gameplay loop. You spend less time trucking, less time waiting for the harvester to unload, and less time managing storage.
Which
means more time planting, more time managing the farm. If you can cycle through an entire harvest year in 20 minutes instead of 40 minutes, you are effectively doubling your rate of progression.
That is fascinating. It's not just about the in-game money, it's about the efficiency of your real-world time.
Especially on mobile or Switch. Let's be real, if you're playing on a Switch, maybe you're on the bus or you have 15 minutes before bed, you don't want to spend that entire 15 minutes driving a slow tractor to the sell point.
No, absolutely not. That feels like a chore. That feels like actual work.
Soybeans respect your time. They let you feel like you completed a cycle plant, grow, harvest, store in a shorter play session. You get the satisfaction of completing a year without the tedium.
That's a really good point. It aligns the game mechanics with the way people actually play the mobile version. So we've got low equipment cost, high selling price, and time efficiency. It sounds like the perfect crop, But is there a catch? Is there a wrong way to do this?
There is. And this is where the pro tip from our source comes in. It's all about the selling strategy.
Okay, lay it on us. How to mess this up?
The biggest mistake you can make with the soybean strategy is selling directly off the harvester.
But wait, didn't we just say we want to make money fast? I harvest, I sell, I get cash. That's the loop.
We want smart money. In FS23, market prices fluctuate seasonally. They have distinct peaks and valleys throughout the in-game year.
Right. Supply and demand simulation.
If you sell immediately after harvest, which is usually in late summer or early autumn in the game, you are selling at the harvest dip. Everyone has soybeans, so the price is low. The market is completely flooded.
Ah, okay. That makes perfect sense.
But because the base value of soybeans is so high, remember, over $2,000 per 1,000 liters waiting for a peak price makes a massive difference.
Can you break that down? How much of a difference are we really talking about?
Sure. If wheat goes up by 10%, that's pennies. It's hardly worth the storage cost or the time it takes to wait. But if soybeans go up by 10 or 20%, that is hundreds of dollars of extra profit per ton. The leverage is just much higher.
I see.
And here is where the volume thing comes back to help us again. Because you aren't drowning in millions of liters of product, you can actually fit your entire soybean harvest in the starting silo.
Oh, that's a great point. If I harvest potatoes, I need a warehouse the size of a football field.
Right. You'd need to buy extra storage immediately or just pile them on the ground. But with soybeans, your little starting silo can easily hold a harvest or two. So the strategy is simply harvest, store in the silo, sleep through the months, and watch the price chart.
And what month are we looking for? When do you pull the trigger and sell?
Usually in FS23, you're looking at June or July. That's often when the scarcity hits and the price spikes. When it hits that peak boom, you sell everything.
Strategic patience.
It turns effort into smart profit. You aren't working harder, you're just timing the market. You let the economy do the work for you.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. What if I need the money right now? I have helper fees to pay, I have fuel costs. Sitting on a silo full of beans doesn't pay the bills today.
That's a totally valid concern. But this strategy assumes your operating costs are low because you didn't buy the expensive equipment. Your daily running costs should be minimal. You should have enough of a cash buffer to just wait.
So it forces you to be disciplined. You can't just spend every single dollar you make.
Exactly. It teaches you to manage cash flow, not just cash on hand. It's a great lesson in basic farm management.
So what does this actually look like for the player's journey? We're applying this strategy. How does the mid-game change compare to the usual struggle?
It's a game changer moment. The source describes a shift from survival to expansion.
I like the sound of that. Expansion is fun. Survival is stressful.
Usually the early game is just struggling to stay afloat. You're repairing the tractor and realizing you can't afford fertilizer. But with soybeans, you recover your machine costs very quickly. Because your overhead is low and your income is high, your profit margin is wide.
So you start seeing that bank balance actually go up consistently.
And that allows you to buy the next field sooner. And this is key because soybeans are fast to harvest. You can manage 2 or 3 fields with your starter equipment without getting overwhelmed.
That's the key scaling point right there. You don't need to upgrade the tractor just because you bought more land.
Not immediately, no. You can scale horizontally, meaning more land, before you have to scale vertically with bigger, faster machines. You don't need the $400,000 combine until you have a massive amount of land.
Now, what about factories? The intro mentioned avoiding production units, but isn't the goal of FS23 to own the bread factory and the oil mill and the dairy?
Eventually, yes. But the learner profile often gets overwhelmed by production chains way too early. Think about what it takes to just make bread.
You need wheat, you need a mill to make flour, you need a bakery.
Exactly. You have to grow the wheat, truck it to the mill, wait for it to process, load the flour pallets, truck the flour to the bakery. It turns the game into a factory manager simulator.
And suddenly you're dealing with pallets. And if there is one thing I know about farming simulator physics,
Pallets are the enemy.
they really are.
They flip over, they get stuck in the ground, they fly into the stratosphere. It's a nightmare, especially on a touchscreen interface.
Exactly. I've lost more time fighting pallets than I have actually farming.
The soybean strategy is for people who want to farm. It's pure agriculture. You grow, you harvest, you sell. It's stress-free. It cuts out the middleman management.
But the guide does mention a next step. We aren't growing soybeans forever, right? Eventually, we want to rule the world.
No, we don't do this forever. The guide clearly says this strategy is about building a foundation. It's how you make your first million. Once you have that million, once you have the big fields and the big bank account, then you can look at factories.
Right. You can afford to mess up then.
Exactly. You can afford the complexity because you have the cash flow to support it. But starting with factories or complex crops is like trying to run a marathon before you can even walk. Soybeans are the walking.
It's really about knowing your phase in the game. Don't play the end game when you're still in the early game.
That's a profound lesson for almost any simulation game, honestly. Respect the progression curve. Don't skip steps.
So if we look at the bigger picture here, this deep dive is really pushing back against the idea that more complex automatically equals better.
100%. There's a tendency in gaming, and maybe in life too, to think that if something is complicated like harvesting cotton or managing a sugar beet supply chain, it must be more rewarding.
If it's hard, it must be good. If it's expensive, it must be the best.
Right. But often, the simple, efficient solution is the one that actually gets you to your goal faster. Soybeans are boring.
Yeah.
They are simple. They aren't flashy new technology, but they work.
It's the boring is profitable theory.
And for a mobile player, that efficiency is absolutely everything. You get the satisfaction of farming, the satisfaction of seeing the bank account grow without the headache of micromanagement. You can play for 10 minutes and actually feel good about it.
I love that. It's very liberating to be told, hey, you don't have to do the hard stuff to win.
You really don't. And actually, doing the hard stuff too early is exactly why you're losing.
So to recap for you listening right now who are maybe itching to boot up FS23, let's break down the soybean strategy checklist. Let's make this actionable.
Step 1, ignore the wheat and corn tutorials. They are yield traps.
Check. Sorry, Amber Haves a grain, you're out.
Step 2, do not buy expensive specialized harvesters for potatoes or cotton. It is a financial death sentence in the early game.
Keep the wallet closed. No impulse buys on shiny tractors. Check.
Step 3, plant soybeans. Use your existing standard equipment.
Easy enough. Standard seeder, standard combine.
Step 4, store the harvest in your silo. Do not sell straight off the combine.
Patience. Resist the urge for quick cash.
Step 5, wait for the peak price, usually around June or July, and sell everything at once.
And step 6, profit and expand.
That's the loop. Rinse and repeat until you have your first million.
It sounds so doable when you lay it out like that.
It really is. It takes the grind out of the game and replaces it with actual progress. And frankly, seeing that bank balance hit 7 figures feels a whole lot better than seeing a silo full of cheap wheat.
You know, it's funny. We spend so much time in these games trying to optimize, but sometimes we optimize for the exact wrong thing. We optimize for busyness instead of results.
That's the busy work illusion again. It's a powerful trap. We think if the wheels are turning, we must be making money. But sometimes the wheels are just spinning in the mud.
Well, I think a lot of virtual farmers are going to be switching up their crop rotations after listening to this.
I hope so. Though the virtual soybean market is about to crash from oversupply if all our listeners start doing this at once.
We might just break the in-game economy. But hey, that is a problem for the future millionaires to worry about.
Exactly.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with a thought. We've talked a lot today about the busy work illusion, doing things just to feel productive.
It's a concept that applies way beyond the Nintendo Switch.
So here's the question for you to mull over. How much of your gameplay, or hey, even your real work, is just wheat farming? How much of it is moving huge volumes of low-value stuff back and forth just to feel busy versus planting the soybeans that actually build your bank balance?
That is a very dangerous question to ask yourself on a Monday morning.
It really is, but it might just change how you play the game and maybe even how you plan your day.
You know, there is this very specific, almost dangerous romanticism attached to simulation games.
Oh, absolutely. Especially Farming Simulator 23.
Right. You boot it up. Maybe you're on the Switch during a commute, or you've got 5 minutes on your phone, and you have this vision.
Your pastoral fantasy.
Exactly. You buy the plot of land. The sun is rising over the virtual hills. You climb into that shiny red Case IH tractor, and you just think, this is it.
The simple life.
The simple life. I plant seeds, I watch them grow, and I watch the bank account go up.
It's incredibly effective. I mean, it's why we buy the game in the first place, really. We want to escape the chaos of the real-world economy for something that feels fair. Predictable. You put work in, you get money out.
Predictable, yes. But then, and we see this in the forums constantly, reality hits.
The brutal math of the in-game economy.
Yes. We've been combing through player data, Reddit threads, strategy guides for FS23 for this deep dive, and there's this recurring scream of frustration New players are grinding, they're waking up at virtual dawn, doing everything right, playing for 3 or 4 in-game years, and their bank balance is just flat.
It's a subsistence farming plateau.
Yes.
You feel busy, you're driving the tractor, you're harvesting, the game looks like it's working, but the farm isn't growing. You can't afford the new land or the bigger harvester. You are basically just treading water year after year.
And naturally, when that happens, you blame your skills. You think, am I a bad driver? Did I miss a patch of corn? Did I hire too many AI workers?
Which, to be fair, the AI workers can be a little erratic.
True. But looking at the stack of research we have today, the issue isn't how you're driving. It's a fundamental economic mistake you made before you even turn the key in the ignition.
It's the crop choice. It almost always comes down to the crop choice.
So that is our mission for today's deep dive. We aren't just tossing out random gaming tips here. We are unpacking a very specific economic strategy tailored for beginners, specifically on mobile and Switch, where the interface and time constraints are different.
Right. We are looking for the Goldilocks crop.
Yes. We need a crop that provides high liquidity and stable income, but, and this is the real constraint, it cannot require you to build complex factories, production chains, or buy million-dollar specialized machinery.
We want pure agricultural profit.
And I'm going to tease the answer right now because, honestly, it's hilariously mundane. It's not some rare, exotic fruit added in a DLC. It's not a magic money tree. But understanding why this specific crop works is going to require us to overturn pretty much everything a normal person assumes about how farming works.
We have to talk about the difference between yield and value. That is where the trap is.
Okay, let's walk through the beginner's journey to see where it goes wrong. I start a new game, I've got my starter farm, what do I plant? If I follow the tutorial or just my gut, I'm planting cereals. Wheat, barley, maybe some oats or corn.
Historically and statistically, that is where 90% of players start.
Well, it's the default. It feels like starter farming. You see a field of golden wheat, you think bread, you think staple food, you think profit. Plus, the equipment you start with is usually designed for this. So why would the game set me up to fail?
It's not setting you up to fail. It's setting you up to work. And that is the first trap.
Okay.
We call it the volume illusion. Yes, wheat and barley are simple to grow. You don't need weird equipment. But purely from an economic standpoint, in Farming Simulator 23, they are a profitability nightmare for a small farm trying to expand.
A nightmare. That seems a bit excessive. I mean, I harvest the wheat, I put it in the trailer, I sell it, I get money. Where's the nightmare?
The nightmare is in the logistics and the margins. Let's look at the data. Wheat has a very high yield in terms of liters. You are producing a massive volume of material per hectare.
Oh, I know this, Pam. You do one pass with the harvester and suddenly the tank full alarm is beeping. You have to stop, drive the trailer over, unload, drive the trailer to the silo. If you have a big field, you're doing that 10, maybe 15 times.
You are moving a mountain. But here is the problem. The price per liter for wheat and barley is historically low in the game economy.
How low?
We're talking maybe $300 to $400 per 1,000 liters, depending on the month. So you end up hauling massive amounts of grain, burning fuel, burning real-world time, and putting wear and tear on your tractor. But when you actually sell that full trailer, the net financial increase is just pennies.
It's like being paid in nickels.
Yes.
You might have a wheelbarrow full of money, but it's just nickels. It's heavy, it's hard to push, but it's not actually that much purchasing power.
That's the perfect analogy. You see a full trailer and your brain says, I'm rich.
Yeah.
But the bank says you made $4,000, and there's a secondary trap with cereals that the data points out. Straw.
Right, straw. The tutorial tells you the straw is a bonus. You harvest the wheat, it drops straw swaths, you bale it, and you sell it. That's supposed to be free money. I always feel guilty if I don't collect the straw.
It isn't free money, it's an operational cost trap.
How so?
Think about it. To get that straw, you need a baller. A decent baller costs money. Then you need a bale loader to move them. That's more money. Then you have to spend the time driving over the field again to pick it up.
So for a beginner with limited cash, investing in baling equipment to sell cheap straw is actually slowing down their return on investment.
Precisely. You're spending $50,000 on equipment to make maybe $500 or $800 per harvest on straw. The math just doesn't work until you're running a massive operation with hundreds of cows. For a beginner, straw is a total distraction.
Okay, so that's the default trap. You work too hard for too little, which usually leads to the second phase of the beginner's journey. The player looks at their bank account, sees they're broke, and decides, okay, I need to go big, I need the rich crops.
They hit Google, they search most profitable crop FS23, and they see the heavy hitters. Sugar cane, potatoes, sugar beets, cotton.
I have done this. You look at the price of cotton or the sheer volume of potatoes and you see dollar signs. You think if I just plant potatoes, I'll be a millionaire in one harvest. But our sources are flashing a giant red warning light here. Why is this a trap?
It's the capital expenditure death spiral. It all comes down to overhead. Let's take potatoes. You cannot harvest potatoes with your standard combine harvester. You need a specialized potato harvester.
We're talking about those weird, grim-looking machines that do literally nothing else but dig potatoes.
Correct. And in the game economy, a self-propelled potato harvester can cost upwards of $400,000 or $500,000. Even the tow-behind ones are expensive and require a high-horsepower tractor to pull.
Ouch. So if I'm a beginner with a small farm, buying a potato harvester is basically bankrupting me.
You deplete your entire cash reserve. Or worse, you max out your loan limit. So now you have this fancy machine, but you have no money to buy more land, you have no money to upgrade your tractor, and you're paying huge interest on the loan. You are technically rich in assets, but you have zero cash flow.
And let's talk about the user experience for a second. Potatoes aren't exactly set it and forget it, are they?
Far from it. Root crops like potatoes and beets are high micromanagement crops. The yield volume is astronomical, much higher even than wheat. You will fill a trailer every 2 minutes. If you are playing solo on a Switch without mods to automate things, it is a grind. It stops being a game and becomes a second job.
That's the time cost we often ignore. If I spend 4 hours real-time harvesting one potato field, that's 4 hours I didn't spend expanding my empire.
Exactly. Usually, this is where people quit the game. They get stuck in the mud, literally and financially. They spend all their liquidity on a machine they use once a year, and the harvest takes forever.
So let's reset the board. On one hand, we have wheat, too much physical work for too little money. On the other hand, we have potatoes and cotton. Too much upfront cost and complexity for a beginner to survive. We need a middle ground. We need the solution.
And yet the soybean.
The soybean.
I know, it sounds incredibly underwhelming.
It really does. I mean, no offense to the bean farmers of the world, but in a video game, it is the most boring crop imaginable. It doesn't grow very tall. It doesn't look cool, waving in the wind like corn. It's just a green bush that turns brown. It feels small.
And that is why it is often ignored by new players. It doesn't have the visual wow factor. It doesn't produce massive mountains of harvested product. But if we strip away the aesthetics and look purely at the spreadsheet, which is what a simulation economy is, the soybean is a powerhouse.
Okay, sell me on the power of the bean. Why is this the magic bullet for a beginner?
It comes down to density of value. We need to look at the price per unit. In the Farming Simulator 23 economy, soybeans have one of the highest base sell prices of any standard crop. We are talking an average of around $2,300 per 1,000 liters.
$2,300 per 1,000 liters.
Right.
Okay, let's compare that. Wheat is around 400.
Roughly, yes. Depending on difficulty, wheat hovers around 350 to 400. So a liter of soybeans is worth nearly 6 times more than a liter of wheat.
But wait, the counter argument I always hear is, but wheat yields more. If I get twice as much wheat, doesn't that balance out?
That is the math trap. Let's run the numbers on a hypothetical hectare. A hectare of wheat might give you 18,000 liters. At $400 per 1,000 liters, that's about $7,200 revenue.
Okay, $7,200, not bad.
Now, soybeans have a much lower yield. You might only get 9,000 liters per hectare, half the volume. But at $2,300 per 1,000 liters, that's over $20,000 of revenue from the exact same patch of dirt.
Whoa, that is not a small margin. That is nearly triple the income per harvest.
Exactly, and you did half the physical hauling work because you only moved 9,000 liters instead of 18,000. You were making way more money while doing significantly less driving.
That is a massive distinction. You're effectively earning more money for moving less stuff. It's the difference between hauling a truckload of feathers versus a truckload of bold bars.
Precisely, you are condensing value. And this brings us to the operational efficiencies, specifically regarding equipment. We said potatoes were a trap because the machines cost $500,000. Does the soybean require some fancy bean-o-matic harvester?
That's the fear. I don't want to buy another specialized header.
You don't have to. Soybeans use the exact same equipment as wheat. You need a normal grain header, which comes with your starter harvester. You need a normal seeder. You need a standard trailer.
So if I started the game with the basic setup, that little yellow New Holland harvester and the small tractor, I am already good to go.
You are 100% ready. You literally just change the seeds in your planter from wheat to soybeans. There is zero switching cost.
That is huge for a beginner. It keeps your overhead practically at zero. You're not sinking capital into a depreciating asset.
And that means your return on investment is immediate. Every dollar you make from that first soybean harvest is profit you can use to expand, rather than paying off a loan you took out for a cotton picker.
I want to circle back to the time factor you mentioned earlier. We touched on how potatoes take forever. But for the mobile player, someone playing on their lunch break, how much of a difference does this really make?
It's the difference between completing a game year in an hour versus a week. In FS23, specifically on mobile, the AI helpers can be, let's say, inconsistent. You often have to do the work yourself.
Inconsistent is a polite way of saying they drive into trees or miss half the field.
Right. So you are driving. If you harvest wheat, your harvester tank fills up constantly. You are stopping, unloading, driving to the silo, driving back. It disrupts the flow. With soybeans, because the yield volume is lower, the harvester runs for much longer before it gets full.
So you can actually do long passes, you can zone out and just play.
Exactly. And fewer trips to the silo means less fuel used, less repair costs on the tractor, and most importantly, you finish the harvest quickly.
Velocity is the name of the game here.
It is. If you can finish a harvest in 15 minutes with soybeans versus 45 minutes with a high-volume crop, you've gained 30 minutes. You can use that time to do a contract mission for extra cash, you can manage your animals, or you can just sleep and cycle to the next year to get paid again.
So the real takeaway here is about the velocity of capital. You are cycling your cash flow faster.
Simulation games are all about compounding growth. The faster you get that first $100,000, the sooner you buy the next field. The sooner you buy the next field, the sooner you have 2 harvests. Soybeans are the accelerator.
Okay, so we've planted the soybeans. We've harvested them with our cheap standard equipment. We didn't go broke buying a potato digger. Now we have a trailer full of beans. What do we do? Because the source material had a very specific pro tip regarding the selling strategy.
This is vital. Do not sell off the field.
Explain that. Because the temptation is always there. I have the crop. Let me turn it into cash right now so I can see the number go up.
It's the desire for instant gratification. But FS23 has a dynamic market economy. Prices fluctuate seasonally. Usually harvest time is when supply is highest, so prices tank. If you sell immediately after harvest, you are selling at the absolute bottom of the market.
So we need to use the silo.
Use the silo. It's free storage on your starting farm. You dump the soybeans in there and you wait. You check the prices in the menu. There is usually a peak demand time, often in the summer months like June or July or sometimes January, depending on your map settings.
And this goes back to the volume thing, right? Since soybeans don't take up much space, you can store 3 or 4 years worth of harvest in a small silo.
Exactly. If you tried to store 3 years of wheat, you'd overflow your silo immediately. With soybeans, you can stockpile. Then, when the price hits $3,000 per liter during a peak, you sell everything. You can increase your profit by 30-40% just by waiting.
That creates a serious snowball effect.
It does. Think about the progression. You have low costs because you didn't buy special machines. You have high income because you chose a high-value crop. You have efficient time management because you aren't hauling endless trailers. This allows you to accumulate cash much faster than the wheat farmer or the potato farmer.
And cash means land.
Cash means land. And in Farming Simulator, land is the only asset that truly matters. Machines depreciate. Land appreciates. You want to own the map. Soybeans are the engine that funds that conquest.
It's funny, isn't it? We always look for the hack or the secret trick in games. But the secret here is just boring, reliable consistency.
It's the power of the mundane. Everyone wants to jump straight to the complex production chains, making bread, making clothes, making sunflower oil. And those are fun eventually, but you can't start there. Soybeans are the foundation. They're the vegetables you eat before you get the dessert.
Except in this case, the vegetable is literally a bean, and the dessert is owning a massive tractor fleet.
Precisely.
I want to ask one more thing before we wrap up. Is there ever a reason to go back to wheat or corn once you've started the soybean strategy? Or are we just being farmers forever?
You go back When you can afford the complexity. Once you have $1 million, sure, buy the $500,000 forage harvester for corn silage. Buy the production plant to turn wheat into flour. That stuff is fun. But you do it when you have the liquidity to absorb the costs. You don't do it to survive. You do it to play.
That is a great distinction. Soybeans are for survival and growth. Everything else is for luxury.
That's the rule.
So let's bring this all together for the listener who is maybe sitting on the bus right now, staring at their field of withered wheat on their phone screen. What is the immediate action plan?
Finish the harvest you have. Sell the wheat. Do not buy a baller. Then sell your wheat header if you want, or just keep it, but buy a few bags of soybean seeds. Fill that seeder, and don't look back until you have enough cash to buy the field next door.
Simple as that. Let's recap the main takeaways for today's deep dive.
1. Don't get tricked by the volume illusion. Just because wheat fills the trailer fast doesn't mean it fills the bank account fast. The math favors value density, not volume.
Right, pennies versus gold.
2. Avoid the debt trap of complex crops. Potatoes and cotton require specialized, expensive machines that kill your liquidity early in the game.
Don't go broke looking cool.
And 3. Embrace the soybean. It has a high price per liter, $2,300 versus $400. It uses the cheap equipment you already own, and it respects your time as a player.
And it allows you to play the game without feeling like you're actually working a shift at a logistics company.
Which is supposed to be the point of a game, right? To have fun, not just to move virtual boxes.
You would hope so. You know, if we connect this to the bigger picture of strategy games or even real-life business, it raises an interesting point. We are often drawn to the extremes. The easiest path, like wheat, or the flashy high-risk reward, like cotton. But the optimal path is almost always the boring middle ground.
It's a universal lesson. It's not about how much work you do, it's about how much value that work generates. The soybean farmer works physically less than the wheat farmer, but makes triple the profit. Efficiency beats effort every time.
It's not about how much work you do, it's about how much value that work generates. That is definitely something to chew on, whether you're farming virtually or just navigating your own to-do list.
Absolutely. Work smarter, not harder.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for this deep dive into Farming Simulator 23. But before you go, I want to leave you with a thought that builds on what we just talked about. We established that time and efficiency are your most valuable resources in a simulation, right? So apply that density of value rule to your actual real-world side hustles or hobbies. Are you currently hauling loads of low-value virtual wheat in your own life? Spending hours on tasks that just don't move the needle? Maybe it's time to find your real-world soybean.
That is a great way to look at it. Find your soybean.
If you are stuck in the grind, do yourself a favor. Fire up that save file, switch those seeds, and start your journey to that first million.
And remember, patience pays. Use the silo.
Use the silo.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Happy farming.